Desert Solitaire is the name of the book. So I am going to start reading. Look how big this book is. It's 1,000 pages. And I am on page 500. I haven't read in a while. All right. I'm going to focus on reading. So have it in the background, but at the end of every page, I'll look up and I'll check chat to see if there's anything that you goobers are making fun of me for. Is that a fake nose ring? Is that a fake nose ring? I'm sure I'll see tons of those. You can't afford a blender? All right. Edward Abbey. So, the observant reader may have noticed a lack of poke-in-the-ribs humor in this collection. Environmentalists tend toward the somber mostly for the same reason as morticians. But Ed Abbey, 1927 to 1989, was the marvelous exception, a master of anarchy and irreverence, and one of the funniest writers America has produced since Mark Twain. I remember a day spent touring his beloved Arches National Monument in the backcountry near Moab, Utah. Because he refused to let me pay tribute in the form of a $5 admission fee to the park rangers at the gate, we instead drove for miles, took down a fence, and forced my rental car through a series of improbable rutted washes to reach our goal, cackling the whole way. Exploits like this, but involving dynamite, make his The Monkey Wrench Gang surely the greatest environmental action novel, and helped give birth to the radical green group Earth First. But his good cheer, calculated crudity, and pointed political incorrectness may mask for some readers the seriousness of his project. In Desert Solitaire, a book which may last a very long time, he describes a summer in the ranger cabin in that red rock desert country. His hope, he says at the start, is to confront, immediately and directly if it's possible, the bare bones of existence, the elemental and fundamental, the bedrock which sustains us. I want to be able to look at and into a juniper tree, a piece of quartz, a vulture, a spider, and see it as it is in itself, devoid of all humanly ascribed qualities. If you're venturing into the uncharted territory beyond anthropocentrism, it's good to have someone as human as Abby for a guide. Sounds good, Navy. All right, now we're going to get into the actual passage. Polemic, industrial tourism and the national parks. Don't ask me what polemic means. I have no clue. I like my job. The pay is generous. I might even say munificent. $1.95 per hour, earned or not, backed solidly by the world's most powerful $1.95 an hour. Damn. Air Force, biggest national debt and grossest national product. The fringe benefits are priceless. Clean air to breathe after the spring sandstorms. Stillness, solitude, and space. An unobstructed view every day and every night of sun, sky, stars, clouds, mountains, moon, cliff rock, and canyons. A sense of time enough to let thought and feeling range from here to the end of the world and back. The discovery of something intimate, though impossible to name, in the remote. The work is simple and requires almost no mental effort. A good thing is in more ways than one. What little thinking I do is my own, and I do it on government time. Insofar as I follow a schedule that goes about like this. For me, the work week begins on Thursday, which I usually spend in patrolling the roads and walking out the trails. On Friday, I inspect the campgrounds, haul firewood, and distribute the toilet paper. Saturday and Sunday are my busy days as I deal with the influx of weekend visitors and campers, answering questions, pulling cars out of the sand, lowering children down off the rocks, tracking lost grandfathers, and investigating picnics. My Saturday night campfire talks are brief and to the point. Everything all right? I say, badge and all, ambling up to what looks like a cheerful group. Fine, they'll say. How about a drink? Why not? I say. By Sunday evening, most everyone has gone home and the heavy duty is over. Thank God it's Monday, I say to myself the next morning. Mondays are very nice. I empty the garbage cans, read the discarded newspapers, sweep out the outhouses, and disengage the Kleenex from the clutches of cliff rose and cactus. In the afternoon, I watched the clouds drift past the bald peak of Mount Tucunicadavadis. Someone has to do it. I don't know how to say that word. Also, this was written in like 1960. Tuesday and Wednesday, I rest. Those are my days off, and I usually set aside Wednesday evening for a trip to Moab, replenishing my supplies and establishing a little human contact more vital than that possible with the tourists I meet on the job. After a week in the desert, Moab, a population of 5,500 during the great uranium boom, seems like a dazzling metropolis, a throbbing dynamo of commerce and pleasure. I walked the single main street as dazed by the noise and neon as a country boy on his first trip to Times Square. Wow, I'm thinking, this is great. After a visit to Miller's supermarket, where I stock up on pinto beans and other necessities, I am free to visit the beer joints. All of them are busy, crowded with prospectors, miners, geologists, cowboys, truck drivers, and sheep herders. And the talk is loud, vigorous, blue with blasphemy. Although differences of opinion have been known to occur, open violence is rare, for these men treat one another with courtesy and respect. The general atmosphere is free and friendly, quite unlike the sad, sour gloom of most bars I have known, where nervous men in tight collars brood over their drinks between out-of-tune TV screens and a remorseless clock. Why the difference? It's Moab. Okay, thank you. I will say Moab from now on. I guess we are not mobbing overseas, right, Ganja? I've considered the question and come up with the following solution. 1, these prospectors, miners, etc., have most of them been physically active all day out of doors at a mile or more above sea level. They are comfortably tired and relaxed. 2, most of them have been working alone. The presence of a jostling crowd is therefore not a familiar irritation to be borne with resignation, but rather an unaccustomed pleasure to be enjoyed. 3, most of them are making good wages and or doing work they like to do. They are, you might say, happy. The boom will not last, of course, but this is forgotten. And the ethical and political implications of uranium exploration are simply unknown in these parts. 4, the nature of their work requires a combination of skills and knowledge, good health, and self-reliance, which tends to inspire self-confidence. They need not doubt their manhood. Again, everything is subject to change. 5, finally, Moab is a Mormon town with funny ways. Hard booze is not sold across the bar except in the semi-private clubs, nor even standard beer. These hard-drinking fellows whom I wish to praise are trying to get drunk on 3.2%. They rise somewhat heavily from their chairs and bar stools and tramp with frequency and a squelchy, sodden noise toward the pissers at the back of the room, more waterlogged than intoxicated. Imagine drinking 3.2% consistently in order to get drunk. That would be insane. You might as well, wow, that's crazy. Might as well drink orange juice. In the end, the beer halls of Moab, like all others, become to me depressing places. After a few games of rotation pool with my friend, Viviano Jaquez, a reformed sheep herder turned dude wrangler, a dubious reform, I'm glad to leave the last of these smoky dens around midnight and to climb into my pickup and take the long drive north and east back to the Silent Rock, the unbounded space and the sweet clean air of my outpost in the Arches. Yes, it's a good job. On the rare occasions when I peer into the future for more than a few days, I can foresee myself returning here for season after season, year after year, indefinitely. And why not? What better sinecure could a man with small needs, infinite desires, and philosophic pretensions ask for? The better part of each year in the wilderness and the winters in some complementary, equally agreeable environment, Hoboken, perhaps, or Tijuana, Nogales, Juarez, one of the border towns. Maybe Tonopah, a good, tough Nevada mining town with legal prostitution, or possibly Oakland or even New Orleans. Someplace grimy, cheap, since I'd be living on unemployment insurance, decayed, hopelessly corrupt. I idle away hours dreaming of the wonderful winter to come, of the chocolate-colored mistress I'll have to rub my back, The journal spread open between two tall candles and massive silver candlesticks, the scrambled eggs with green chili, the crock of home brew fermenting quietly in the corner, etc. The nights of desperate laughter with brave young comrades, burning billboards and defacing public institutions, romantic dreams, romantic dreams. For there is a cloud on my horizon, a small dark cloud no bigger than my hand. Its name is progress. The ease and relative freedom of this lovely job at Arches follow from the comparative absence of the motorized tourists, who stay away by the millions. And they stay away because of the unpaved entrance road, the unflushable toilets in the campgrounds, and the fact that most of them have never even heard of Arches National Monument. Could there be a more genuine testimonial to its beauty and integrity? All this must change. I'd been warned on the first day. Merle and Floyd had mentioned something about developments, improvements, a sinister master plan. Thinking that they were the dreamers, I paid little heed and had soon forgotten the whole ridiculous business. But only a few days ago, something happened which shook me out of my pleasant apathy. I was sitting out back on my 33,000-acre terrace, shoeless and shirtless, scratching my toes in the sand and sipping on a tall iced drink, watching the flow of evening over the desert. Prime time, the sun very low in the west, the birds coming back to life, the shadows rolling for miles over rock and sand to the very base of the brilliant mountains. I had a small fire going near the table, not for heat or light, but for the fragrance of the juniper and the ritual appeal of the clear flames. For symbolic reasons, for ceremony. When I heard a faint sound over my shoulder, I looked and saw a file of deer watching from 50 yards away. 3 does and a velvet-horned buck, all dark against the sundown sky. Ganja, if only you were in the right place at the right time, you know. 80 years ago, you could have gotten one. They began to move. I whistled and they stopped again, staring at me. "Come on over," I said. "Have a drink." They declined, moving off with casual, unhurried grace, quiet as phantoms, and disappeared beyond the rise. Smiling, thoroughly at peace, I turned back to my drink, the little fire, the subtle transformations of the immense landscape before me. On the program, a rise of the full moon. It was then I heard the discordant note, the snarling whine of a Jeep in low range and four-wheel drive coming from an unexpected direction, from the vicinity of the old foot and horse trail that leads from Balanced Rock down towards Courthouse Wash and on to park headquarters near Moab. The Jeep came in sight from beyond some bluffs, turned onto the dirt road, and came up the hill toward the entrance station. Now operating a motor vehicle of any kind on the trails of a national park is strictly forbidden, a nasty bureaucratic regulation which I heartily support. My bosom swelled with the righteous indignation of a cop. By God, I thought, I'm going to write these sons of bitches a ticket. I put down the drink and strode to the horse trailer to get my badge. Long before I could find the shirt with the badge on it, however, or the ticket book, or my shoes, or my park ranger hat, the Jeep turned in at my driveway and came right up to the door of my trailer. It was a gray Jeep with a U.S. government decal on the side, Bureau of Public Roads, and covered with dust. 2 empty water bags flapped at the bumper. Inside were 3 sunburned men in tall breeches and engineering boots, and a pile of equipment, transit case, tripod, survey rod, bundles of wooden stakes. Oh no. The men got out, dripping with dust, and the driver grinned at me, pointing to his parched open mouth and making horrible gasping noises deep in his throat. "All right," I said. "Come on in." It was even hotter inside the trailer than outside, but I opened the refrigerator and left it open and took out a pitcher filled with ice cubes and water. As they passed the pitcher around and forth, I got the full and terrible story, confirming the worst of my fears. They were a survey crew laying out a new road into the Arches. And when would the road be built? Nobody knew for sure. Perhaps in a couple of years, depending on when the Park Service would be able to get the money. The new road, to be paved, of course, would cost somewhere between $500,000 and $1 million, depending on the bids, or more than $50,000 per linear mile. At least enough to pay the salaries of 10 park rangers for 10 years. Too much money, I suggested. They'll never go for it back in Washington. How crazy is that? $1 million for 10 park rangers for 10 years. That's insane. That's so much money. Like, one person making $100,000 salary for 10 years is $1 million. That's kind of like, that's you doing really well in the States now, right? But 10 for 10 years? Getting paid $2 an hour is wild. Inflation's so crazy. Where was I? The three men thought that was pretty funny. Don't worry, they said. This road will be built. I'm worried. I said, look, the party chief explained, you need this road. He was a pleasant-mannered, soft-spoken civil engineer with an unquestioning dedication to his work. A very dangerous man. Who needs it? I said. We get very few tourists in this park. That's why you need it, the engineer explained patiently. Look, he said, when this road is built, you'll get 10, 20, 30 times as many tourists in here as you get now. That's great. His men nodded in solemn agreement, and he stared at me intently, waiting to see what possible answer I could have to that. I said, have some water. I said, I had an answer all right, but I was saving it for later. I knew that I was dealing with a madman. As I typed these words, several years after the little episode of the gray Jeep and the thirsty engineers, all that was foretold was come to pass. Arches National Monument has been developed. The master plan has been fulfilled. Where once a few adventurous people came on weekends to camp for a night or two and enjoy a taste of the primitive and remote, you will now find serpentine streams of Baroque automobiles pouring in and out all through the spring and summer in numbers that would have seemed fantastic when I worked there. From 3,000 to 30,000 to 300,000 per year, the visitation, as they call it, mounts ever upward. The little campgrounds where I used to putter around reading 3-day-old newspapers full of lies and watermelon seeds have now been consolidated into one master campground that looks, during the busy season, like a suburban village. Elaborate house trailers of quilted aluminum crowd upon gigantic camper trucks of fiberglass and molded plastic. Through their windows, you will see the blue glow of television and hear the studio laughter of Los Angeles. Knobby-kneed oldsters and plaid Bermudas buzz up and down the quaintly curving asphalt road on motorbikes. Quarrels break out between campsite neighbors while others gather around their burning charcoal briquettes. Ground campfires no longer permitted, not enough wood, to compare electric toothbrushes. The comfort stations are there, too, all lit up with electricity, fully equipped inside, though the generators break down now and then and the lights go out, or the sewage backs up in the plumbing system. Drain fields were laid out in sand over a solid bed of sandstone, and the water supply sometimes fails, since the 3,000-foot well can only produce about 5 gallons per minute, not enough to meet the demand. Down at the beginning of the new road at park headquarters is the new entrance station and visitor center, where admission fees are collected and where the rangers are going quietly nuts, answering the same 3 basic questions 500 times a day. Where's the John? How long does it take to see this place? And where's the Coke machine? Progress has come at last to the Arches. After a million years of neglect, industrial tourism has arrived. What happened to Arches National Monument is, of course, an old story in the Park Service. All the famous national parks have the same problems on a far grander scale, as everyone knows, and many other problems as yet unknown to a little subordinate unit of the system in a backward part of southeastern Utah. Thanks, Jessica. I appreciate you being here. Oh no, Ganja, are we at 1 viewer? Thanks for swinging by, Jessica. I don't know if you're still here. And the same kind of development that has so transformed Arches is underway, planned or completed in many more national parks and national monuments. I will mention only a few examples with which I am personally familiar. The newly established Canyonlands National Park. Most of the major points we were. Oh God. Oh no. The newly established Canyonlands National Park. Most of the major points of interest in this park are presently accessible over passable dirt roads, by car, Grand View Point, Upheaval Dome, part of the White Rim, Cave Spring, Squaw Spring Campground, and Elephant Hill. The more difficult places, such as Angel Arch or Druid Arch, can be reached by jeep, on horseback, or in a 1 or 2 day hike. Nevertheless, the Park Service has drawn up the usual master plan, calling for modern paved highways to most of the places named and some not named. Grand Canyon National Park, most of the south rim of this park is now closely followed by a conventional high-speed highway and interrupted at numerous places by large asphalt parking lots. It is no longer easy on the south rim to get away from the roar of motor traffic, except by descending into the canyon. Navajo National Monument. A small, fragile, hidden place containing two of the most beautiful cliff dwellings in the Southwest, Keat Seal and Batatakin. This park will be difficult to protect under heavy visitation, and for years it was understood that it would be preserved in a primitive way so as to screen out those tourists unwilling to drive their cars over some 20 miles of dirt road. No longer so. The road has been paved, the campground enlarged and modernized, and the old magic destroyed. National Bridges National Monument. Another small gem in the park system, a group of 3 adjacent natural bridges tucked away in the canyon country of southern Utah. Formerly, you could drive your car over dirt roads, of course, to within sight of an easy walking distance, 100 yards maybe, of the most spectacular of the 3 bridges. From there, it was only a few hours walking time to the other 2. All 3 could easily be seen in a single day. But this was not good enough for the developers. They have now constructed a paved road into the heart of the area between the 2 biggest bridges. Wow, thank you so much, Discord. Very cool. Thank you, Streamlabs. Very cool. Thank you. God, Streamlabs broken. Pisses me off so much. We're an hour into stream. Whoa. How many pages have we read? We've read 1, 2, 3, 4, 5. Honestly, 6. Not bad. That's how fast I read in my head. It's all fucked up what they're doing to the Grand Canyon. Yeah. It is industrial tourism. Yeah. Zion National Park. The northwestern part of this park, known as the Collab area, has until recently been saved as almost virgin wilderness. But a broad highway with banked curves, deep cuts, and heavy fills that will invade this splendid region is already under construction. Capitol Reef National Monument. Grand and colorful scenery in a rugged land, south central Utah. The most beautiful portion of the park was the canyon of the Fremont River, a great place for hiking, camping, and exploring. And what did the authorities do? They built a state highway through it. Lee's Ferry. Until a few years ago, a simple, quiet, primitive place on the shores of the Colorado, Lee's Ferry has now fallen under the protection of the Park Service. And who can protect it against the Park Service? Power lines now bisect the scene. A 100-foot pink water tower looms against the red cliffs. Tract-style houses are built to house the protectors. Natural campsites along the river are closed off, while all campers are now herded into an artificial steel and asphalt campground in the hottest, windiest spot in the area. Historic buildings are razed by bulldozers to save the expense of maintaining them, while at the same time, hundreds of thousands of dollars are spent on an unneeded paved entrance road. And the administrators complain of vandalism. I could easily cite 10 more examples of unnecessary or destructive development for every one I've named so far. What has happened in these particular areas, which I chance to know a little and love too much, has happened, is happening or will soon happen to the majority of our national parks and national forests, despite the illusory protection of the Wilderness Preservation Act, unless a great many citizens rear up on their hind legs and make vigorous political gestures demanding implementation of the act. Allison Hormaday. Hello, Joe. It's a me, Mario. JK, it's Ghostly. Oh! I think this is our first time seeing you on YouTube. So good to see you. Hey! Long time, Ghastly. We're reading. Remember these? It's our first one on YouTube. I remember back in 2007 when I went there, and it was so pretty because there was barely any buildings. I can't imagine what it would be without industrial tourism. That would be so cool to see. I'm doing very well. I'm doing very well. I'm reading chat after every page, so I will see you soon. Thank you for being here again. So good to see you. It's been a long time. There may be some among the readers of this book, like the earnest engineer, who believe without question that any and all forms of construction and development are intrinsic goods in the national park as well as anywhere else, who virtually identify quantity with quality and therefore assume that the greater the quantity of traffic, the higher the value received. There are some who frankly and boldly advocate the eradication of the last remnants of wilderness and the complete subjugation of nature to the requirements of not man, but industry. This is a courageous view, admirable in its simplicity and power, and with the weight of all modern history behind it. It is also quite insane. I cannot attempt to deal with it here. There will be other readers, I hope, who share my basic assumption that wilderness is a necessary part of civilization and it is the primary responsibility of the national park system to preserve intact and undiminished what little still remains. Most readers, while generally sympathetic to this latter point of view, will feel, as do the administrators of the National Park Service, that although wilderness is a fine thing, certain compromises and adjustments are necessary in order to meet the ever-expanding demand for outdoor recreation. It is precisely this question which I would like to examine now. The Park Service, established by Congress in 1916, was directed not only to administer the parks but also to provide for the enjoyment of same in such manner and by such means as will leave them unimpaired for the enjoyment of future generations. This appropriately ambiguous language, employed long before the onslaught of the automobile, has been understood in various and often opposing ways ever since. The Park Service, like any other big organization, includes factions and factions. The developers, the dominant faction, place their emphasis on the words provide for the enjoyment. The preservers, a minority but also strong, emphasize the words leave them unimpaired. It is apparent then that we cannot decide the question of development versus preservation by a simple referral to Holy Writ or an attempt to guess the intention of the founding fathers. We must make up our own minds and decide for ourselves what the national parks should be and what purpose they should serve. The first issue that appears when we get into this matter, the most important issue and perhaps the only issue, is the one called accessibility. The developers insist that the parks must be fully accessible not only to people but also to their machines, that is, to automobiles, motorboats, etc. The preservers argue, in principle at least, that wilderness and motors are incompatible and that the former can best be experienced, understood, and enjoyed when the machines are left behind where they belong, on the superhighways and in the parking lots, on the reservoirs and in the marinas. Okay. Yeah, like 2007 was almost 20 years ago. It's like, I'm not even kidding, it's not far off from 20 years ago. Gotcha. Do you enjoy your job, Allison? And thanks for liking the stream. I appreciate you. Am I going to call you Allison now? Oh my God, you just changed your name. That's smart. No, I don't really want your full name, and you don't really want that. That's the thickest I've ever seen your beard, Joe. Really? You've seen it thicker. In Australia, I had this bitch huge. I'm off work until November 4th. I had an emergency surgery on November 4th is when I'm coming back. I had an emergency surgery on October 4th, and it kind of bed bound me for a month, but I can sit now. So over the last week, we've been streaming a lot. So I have a VOD on the channel. If you go to the lives that says, "Where have I been?" I trim all of my VODs to the beginning of the topic of the stream. So if you go and click on that, you'll see that ASAP. Yeah, the sword is much cooler than the wrench, huh, Ganja? Fine, I'll swap it all the way back. So, yeah, we're reading a passage from Desert Solitaire by Edward Abbey, and the section is called Industrial Tourism in the National Parks. Yeah, I'm feeling better now, Allison, for sure. Was your first YouTube stream? How did you stumble in here? From Discord or from YouTube? Okay, back to the grind. What does accessibility mean? Is there any spot on Earth that men have not proved accessible by the simplest means? Feet and legs and heart. Even Mount McKinley, even Everest, have been surmounted by men on foot. Some of them, incidentally, rank amateurs to the horror and indignation of the professional mountaineers. The interior of the Grand Canyon, a fiercely hot and hostile abyss, is visited each summer by thousands and thousands of tourists of the most banal and unadventurous type, many of them on foot, self-propelled, so to speak, and the others on the backs of mules. Thousands climb each summer to the summit of Mount Whitney, highest point in the 48 United States, while multitudes of others wander on foot or on horseback through the ranges of the Sierras, the Rockies, the Big Smokies, the Cascades, and the mountains of New England. Still, more hundreds and thousands float or paddle each year down the currents of the Salmon, the Snake, the Allagash, the Yampa, the Green, the Rio Grande, the Ozark, the St. Croix, and those portions of the Colorado which have not yet been destroyed by the dam builders. And most significant, these hordes of non-motorized tourists, hungry for a taste of the difficult, the original, the real, do not consist solely of people young and athletic, but also of old folks, fat folks, pale-faced office clerks who don't know a rucksack from a haversack, and even children. The one thing they all have in common is the refusal to live always like sardines in a can. They are determined to get outside of their motor cars for at least a few weeks each year. This being the case, why is the Park Service generally so anxious to accommodate that other crowd? The indolent millions born on wheels and suckled on gasoline, who expect and demand paved highways to lead them in comfort, ease, and safety into every nook and corner of the national parks. For the answer to that, we must consider the character of what I call industrial tourism and the quality of the mechanized tourists, the wheelchair explorers, who are at once the consumers, the raw material, and the victims of industrial tourism. There's a notification on YouTube. Thank you, YouTube. Very cool. Thank you, YouTube. Very cool, says Allison. And I do like my job. I'm doing a program where I'm kind of interning at Altech while finishing stupid school. I don't know what Altech is. I don't live where you live. We live in different parts of the world. What is Altech? I have to pee. I'm going to tough it through another page, though. I don't want to stand up. It's going to hurt. Right now, I am having to read the Glass class for English and answer 125 questions. Whoa. Are they easy questions or no? Sometimes easy questions would be kind of fun, but. Okay. The industrial tourism is a big business. It means money. It includes the motel and restaurant owners, the gasoline retailers, the oil corporations, the road building contractors, the heavy equipment manufacturers, the state and federal engineering agencies, and the sovereign, all-powerful automotive industry. These various interests are well organized, command more wealth than most modern nations, and are represented in Congress with a strength far greater than is justified in any constitutional or democratic sense. Modern politics is expensive. Power follows money. Through Congress, the tourism industry can bring enormous pressure to bear upon such a slender reed in the executive branch as the poor old Park Service, a pressure which is also exerted on every other possible level, local, state, regional, and through advertising and the well-established habits of a wasteful nation. When a new national park, national monument, national seashore, or whatever it may be called is set up, the various forces of industrial tourism on all levels immediately expect action, meaning specifically a road building program. Where trails or primitive dirt roads already exist, then the industry expects, it hardly needs to ask, that these be developed into modern paved highways. On the local level, for example, the first thing that the superintendent of a new park can anticipate being asked when he attends his first meeting on the area's Chamber of Commerce is... I have scam calling my phone. Where am I? Thanks a lot, scam. On the local level, for example, the first thing that the superintendent of a new park can anticipate being asked when he attends his first meeting of the area's Chamber of Commerce is not, will roads be built? But rather, when does construction begin and why the delay? The natural monument. With super sensitive antennae, these operatives from the Sea of C look into red canyons and see only green, stand among flowers, snorting out the smell of money, and hear, while thunderstorms rumble over mountains, the fall of a dollar bill on motel carpeting. Accustomed to this sort of relentless pressure since its founding, it is little wonder that the Park Service, through a process of natural selection, has tended to evolve a type of administration which, far from resisting such pressure, has usually been more than willing to accommodate it, even to encourage it. Not from any peculiar moral weakness, but simply because such well-adapted administrators are themselves believers in a policy of economic development. Resource management is the current term. Old foot trails may be neglected, backcountry ranger stations left unmanned, and interpretive and protective services inadequately staffed. But the administrators know from long experience that millions for asphalt can always be found. Congress is always willing to appropriate money for more and bigger paved roads anywhere, particularly if they form loops. Loop drives are extremely popular with the petroleum industry. They bring the motorists right back to the same gas station from which he started. Right back, baby. Altec, don't prolapse your pee-pee this time. Thanks, Ganja. I'll try my hardest. Allison says, Altec builds trucks for the electrical companies like bucket trucks. And I meant the Glass Castle. English has not helped improve my typos. Drop out then. Don't do your homework anymore. I think this is a clear sign, Allison. We got you. Okay, do you gotcha? I mean, if someone wants to join the Discord and do command Discord, you can practice timing things out, though. Leave Allison alone, though. They're talking. Great, though it is, however, the power of the tourism business would not in itself be sufficient to shape Park Service policy. To all accusations of excessive development, the administrators can reply, as they will if pressed hard enough, that they are giving the public that it wants, that their primary duty is to serve the public, not preserve the parks. And wilds. Parks are for people, is the public relations slogan, which decoded means that the parks are for people and automobiles. Behind the slogan is the assumption that the majority of Americans, exactly like the managers of the tourist industry expect and demand to see their national parks from the comfort, security, and convenience of their automobiles. Is this assumption correct? Perhaps. Does that justify the continued and increasing erosion of the parks? It does not. Which brings me to the final aspect of the problem of industrial tourism, the industrial tourists themselves. They work hard, these people. They roll up incredible mileages on their odometers, rack up state after state in 2-week transcontinental motor marathons, knock off one national park after another, take millions of square yards of photos, and endure patiently the most prolonged discomforts. The tedious traffic jams, the awful food of park cafeterias and roadside eateries, the nocturnal search for a place to sleep or camp, the dreary routine of one-stop service, the endless lines of creeping traffic, the smell of exhaust fumes, the ever-proliferating rules and regulations, the fees and the bills of the service charges, the boiling radiator and the flat tire and the vapor lock, the surly retorts of room clerks and traffic cops, then the incessant jostling of the anxious crowds, the irritation and restlessness of their children, the worry of their wives, and the long drive home at night in the steam of racing cars against the lights of another stream of racing in the opposite direction, passing now and then the obscure tangle, the shattered glass, the patrolman's lurid blinker light of one more wreck. Hard work and risky. Too much for some who have given up the struggle on the highways in exchange for an entirely different kind of vacation, out in the open, on their own feet, following the quiet trail through forests and mountains. Bedding down at evening under the stars when and where they feel like it, at a time when the industrial tourists are still hunting for a place to park their automobiles. Allison says, "Oh, I've been tempted to. If I didn't join this program, there was like a 69% chance of me dropping out." I actually thought like you had talked about dropping out when we had last talked. When was the last time you hung out with us? I don't think I've seen you in a long time. So it's great to see you back. I know we all drop out at our own time for our own reasons, so no need to explain anything. Industrial tourism is a threat to the national parks, but the chief victims of the system are the motorized tourists. They are being robbed and robbing themselves. So long as they are unwilling to crawl out of their cars, they will not discover the treasures of the national parks and will never escape the stress and turmoil of their suburban complexes, which they had hoped, presumably, to leave behind them for a while. Blue Skelly, we're reading some environmental stuff. Good to see you. Environment book, baby. We've still got quite a bit to this passage, but you missed some good stuff. This is about national parks. It's called Industrial Tourism in the National Parks. Everyone say hey to Skelly. Good to see you. Yeah, it's been a few months. We talk in the Discord all the time. I haven't seen you in there. Do you hate us? I haven't been streaming consistently, and I can explain that later. But it's different now. I don't think you've been here. I'm never streaming to Twitch again. We're completely done with Twitch. It's YouTube time. Okay. How to pry the tourists out of their automobiles, out of their back-breaking upholstered mechanized wheelchairs and onto their feet, onto the strange warmth and solidity of Mother Earth again? This is the problem which the Park Service should confront directly, not evasively, and which it cannot resolve by simply submitting and conforming to the automobile habit. The automobile, which began as a transportation convenience, has become a bloody tyrant. 50,000 lives a year pass away due to driving, and it is the responsibility of the Park Service, as well as that of everyone else concerned with preserving both wilderness and civilization, to begin a campaign of resistance. The automotive combine has almost succeeded in strangling our cities. We need not let it also destroy our national parks. It will be objected that a constantly increasing population makes resistance and conservation a hopeless battle. This is true, unless a way is found to stabilize the nation's population. The parks cannot be saved, or anything else worth a damn. Wilderness preservation, like 100 other good causes, will be forgotten under the overwhelming pressure of a struggle for mere survival and sanity in a completely urbanized, completely industrialized, ever more crowded environment. For my own part, I would rather take my chances in a thermonuclear war than living in such a world. Is it about all the parking lots dead centered in national parks? That is a part of it. That is a part of it. Yeah, that was covered. In a few yeah, should I go read now? I mean, pee. I'll read from the bathroom. Okay, I really have to pee. I think we've read like probably like nine pages or something. There's a lot. How much do you all read in like one sitting? Okay, thank you, Allison, for making me go pee. I have to readjust my pad. So, to be honest, let me hold on. Let me get back into my position. In my position of security and less pain. I'm never eating spicy food again, specifically when I have stitches on my asshole. Okay. Let's go. So, oh, well, that's kind of good. I haven't been on Twitch in like a year, I feel like. I feel like Twitch is slowly dying off. Yeah, I mean, it's still like, I don't know how many people are streaming on YouTube. Is going to grow its streaming platform to the all of the functions that Twitch has over time. And I think it's super important that we get in on it early, and then when it does hit the strides that Twitch has, then we're in it deep and super early. So Ganja says, I'd never read. That's not good, dude. Reading is doing things that are not related to technology is like so important, you know, because the golden rule number 1, thou shalt get sidetracked every goddamn time. 5 points to you if you know what that quote is from. Skelly says, honestly, I haven't picked up a book since like assigned reading in middle school. It took me a while to pick up reading casually. after I graduated college, it took me probably like a year and a half to get back into it because you get assigned reading for homework and it's the biggest turnoff ever. So, you know what I'm saying? It hit a certain point where I was like, oh, you know what? I'm kind of thinking about getting back into it. And it's really fun. I still find myself, it's still not easy to get back into reading, but I am reading more often. You know, I've read quite a few books over the last year and a half. I've read the whole book of sustainability, Monarchs of the Sea, Barry Lopez's Horizon, and then 500 pages of this book. So I am reading quite a bit. Let's go explore in the wilderness. What I think would be a phenomenal addition to your explorations is reading. Bring a book out with you. Bring a hammock. Take a book out. Exactly. I love the reading, says Allison, but I hate assignments. Yeah, and the farther you get into school, it'll turn you off more and more, and then you'll want to read eventually. And then you also ask, can I ask what happened? Yeah, if you want the whole explanation, it's on that VOD. If you go into my YouTube live section, my entire anus prolapsed and hemorrhoided, all 3 columns, and it was like the worst case any of the doctors had seen over like the last 26 years. And I had 2/3 of my anus like surgically altered and removed, and the recovery time is like 7 weeks. And it was all because of food poisoning. I got food poisoning, and everything was kind of like allergic there was like an allergic reaction thing, and it spazzed, and it's nice pooping somewhat normally though. Kind of. It was all because of a jalapeno muffin. I think that's a crucial part of the story. I didn't want to give too much detail, but it was a jalapeno muffin. Yeah, that VOD, I think I say the word anus at least 300 times. It's a little vulgar. It's a vulgar VOD, but important for Joe Mama lore. Yeah, super fun. Okay, make sure you're all drinking water too. I think we're kind of almost done. We have 30 minutes left of stream. Yeah, we're almost done. I think we have about 8 pages left. It should be like right on time. Okay. Hello, where were we? Right. For my own part, I would rather take my chances in a thermonuclear war than live in such a world. Assuming, however, that population growth will be halted at a tolerable level before catastrophe does it for us, it remains permissible to talk about such things as the national parks. Having indulged myself in a number of harsh judgments upon the Park Service, the tourist industry, and the motoring public, I now feel entitled to make some constructive, practical, sensible proposals for the salvation of both parks and people. 1. No more cars in national parks. None. Let the people walk or ride horses, bicycles, mules, wild pigs, anything. But keep the automobiles and the motorcycles and all of their motorized relatives out. We have agreed not to drive our automobiles into cathedrals, concert halls, art museums, legislative assemblies, private bedrooms, and the other sanctums of our culture. We should treat our national parks with the same deference, for they, too, are holy places. An increasingly pagan and hedonistic people, thank God, we are learning finally that the forests and mountains and desert canyons are holier than our churches. Therefore, let us behave accordingly. Consider a concrete example and what could be done with it. Yosemite Valley and Yosemite National Park. At present day, a dusty, milling confusion of motor vehicles and ponderous camping machinery, it could be returned to relative beauty and order by the simple expedient of requiring all visitors at the park entrance to lock up their automobiles and continue their tour on the seats of good, workable bicycles supplied free of charge by the United States government. Let our people travel light and free on their bicycles. Nothing on the backs but a shirt. Nothing tied to the bike but a slicker in case of rain. Their bedrolls, their backpacks, their tents, their food and cooking kits will be trucked in for them, free of charge, to the campground of their choice in the valley by the Park Service. Why not? The roads will still be there. Once in the valley, they will find the concessioners waiting, ready to supply whatever needs might have been overlooked, or to furnish rooms and meals for those who don't want to camp out. The same thing could be done at Grand Canyon or at Yellowstone or at any of the other shrines to the out of doors. There is no compelling reason, for example, why tourists need to drive their automobiles to the very brink of the Grand Canyon's south rim. They could walk that last mile. Better yet, the Park Service should build an enormous parking lot about 10 miles south of Grand Canyon Village and another east of Desert View. At those points, as of Yosemite, our people could emerge from their steaming shells of steel and glass and climb upon horses or bicycles for the final leg of the journey. On the rim, as at the present, the hotels and restaurants will remain to serve the physical needs of the park visitors. Trips along the rim would also be made on foot, on horseback, or utilizing the paved road which already exists on bicycles. For those willing to go all the way from one parking lot to the other, a distance of some 60 or 70 miles, we might provide bus service back to their cars, a service which would be at the same time effect a convenient exchange of bicycles and or horses between the two terminals. What about children? What about the aged and infirm? Frankly, we need waste little sympathy on these two pressure groups. Children too small to ride bicycles and too heavy to be borne on their parents' backs need only wait a few years. If they are not run over by automobiles, they will grow into a lifetime of joyous adventure. If we save the parks and leave them unimpaired for the enjoyment of future generations. The aged merit even less sympathy. After all, they had the opportunity to see the country when it was still relatively unspoiled. However, we'll stretch a point for those too old or too sickly to mount a bicycle and let them ride the shuttle buses. Okay. Allison says, I want to explore more around where I am, but don't have many places to explore, anyone to explore with. You'd be surprised. Could just go on a walk. Walk 3 miles in a direction you haven't been before. And everything is new. Everything is new. You'd be so surprised what is around you that you just don't know of. That's what's good about exploring. You don't need any of that to do it. Yeah. Too many crackheads and weirdos to explore by myself. Yeah. Oh. This is random, but last night I had a dream that I got to pet and hold a baby miniature cow. Now you can make that shit a reality, or you two pussies. Man, I wish I had those dreams. That'd be so cool. Joe, did I tell you I did a 12-kilometer hike in Boulder? No, that's a long hike. That's it's what? Like 8 miles, right? I mean, getting kidnapped, they'll bring you to places you haven't been. I can foresee complaints. The motorized tourists, reluctant to give up the old ways, will complain that they can't see enough without their automobiles to bear them swiftly, traffic permitting, through the parks. But this is nonsense. A man on foot, on a horseback, or on a bicycle will see more, feel more, enjoy more in 1 mile than the motorist tourist can in 100 miles. Better to idle through one park in 2 weeks than try to race through a dozen in the same amount of time. Those who are familiar with both modes of travel know how experienced that this is true. The rest have only to make the experiment to discover the same truth for themselves. They will complain of physical hardship, these sons of the pioneers. Not for long, once they rediscover the pleasures of actually operating their own limbs and senses in a varied, spontaneous, voluntary style, they will complain instead of crawling back into a car. They may even object to returning to desk and office in that drywall box on Mossy Brook Circle. The fires of revolt may be kindled, which means hope for us all. Number 2, no more new roads in national parks. After banning private automobiles, the second step should be pretty easy. Where paved roads are already in existence, they will be reserved for the bicycles and essential in-park services, such as shuttle buses, the trucking of camping gear, and concessionaire supplies. Where dirt roads already exist, they too will be reserved for non-motorized traffic. Plans for new roads can be discarded, and in their place, a program of trail building begun, badly needed in some of the parks and in many of the national monuments. In mountainous areas, it may be desirable to build emergency shelters along the trails and bike roads. In desert regions, a water supply might have to be provided at certain points, wells drilled and hand-pumped and installed if feasible. Once people are liberated from the confines of... The music's a little loud. Once people are liberated from the confines of automobiles, there will be a greatly increased interest in hiking, exploring, and backcountry pack trips. Fortunately, the parks, by the mere elimination of motor traffic, will come to seem far bigger than they are now. There will be more room for more persons, an astonishing expansion of space. This follows from the interesting fact that a motorized vehicle, when not at rest, requires a volume of space far out of proportion to its size. To illustrate, imagine a lake approximately 10 miles long and on the average 1 mile wide. A single motorboat can easily circumnavigate the lake in about an hour. 10 motorboats would begin to crowd it. 20 or 30, all in operation, would dominate the lake to the exclusion of any other form of activity. And 50 would create the hazards, confusion, and turmoil that make pleasure impossible. Suppose we banned motorboats and allowed only canoes and rowboats. We would see at once that the lake seemed 10 or perhaps 100 times bigger. The same thing holds true to an even greater degree for the automobile. Distance and space are functions of speed and time. Without expending a single dollar from the United States Treasury, we could, if we wanted to, multiply the area of our national parks 10-fold or 100-fold simply by banning the private automobile. The next generation, all 250 million of them, would be grateful to us. Joe, I'll put an ad on Craigslist for someone to come kidnap me so I get to explore. That's so good. You should. You should. Let me know how that goes. Make sure that they subscribe to my Patreon. A friend I have lives in Oregon, and he went on a long-ass hike. I don't remember how long it was, but he sent me a bunch of vids, and it's beautiful. Oregon seems really pretty. Allison, you don't live in the United States, right? Ganja says, my cousin lives in Hood River and had a house in White Salmon. Oh, and that's in Oregon? Cool. You do live in the States. I thought you lived in the UK. Gaslight. Oh, you're gaslighting me, aren't you? Gasly's gaslighting. Number 3. Put the park rangers to work. Lazy, scheming loafers. They've wasted too many years selling tickets at toll booths and sitting behind desks, filing out charts and tables in the vain effort to appease the mania for statistics which torments the Washington office. Put them to work. They're supposed to be rangers. Make the bums range. Kick them out of those overheated, air-conditioned offices. Yank them out of those overstuffed patrol cars and drive them out on the trails where they should be, leading the dudes over hills and dale safely into and back out of the wilderness. It won't hurt them to work off a little office fat. It'll do them good. Help take their minds off of each other's wives and give them a chance to get out of reach of the boss. A blessing for all concerned. They will be needed on the trail. Once we outlaw the motors and stop the road building and force the multitudes back on their feet, the people will need leaders. A venturesome minority will always be eager to set off on their own, and no obstacles should be placed in their path. Let them take risks, for God's sake. Let them get lost, sunburnt, stranded, downed, eaten by bears, buried alive under avalanches. That is the right and privilege of any free American. But the rest, the majority, most of them new to the outdoors, will need and welcome assistance, instruction, and guidance. Many will not know how to saddle a horse, read a topographical map, follow a trail over slick rock, memorize landmarks, build a fire in rain, treat snake bite, rappel down a cliff, glissade down a glacier, read a compass, find water under sand, load a burrow, splint a broken bone, bury a body, patch a rubber boat, portage a waterfall, survive a blizzard, avoid lightning, cook a porcupine, comfort a girl during a thunderstorm, predict the weather, dodge falling rock, climb out of a box canyon, or pour piss out of a boot. Park rangers know these things, or should know them, or used to know them, and can relearn. They will be needed. In addition to this sort of practical guide service, the ranger will also be a bit of a naturalist, able to edify the party in his charge with the natural and human history of the area in detail and in broad outline. Critics of my program will argue that it is too late for such a radical reformation of a people's approach to the out of doors, that the pattern is too deeply set, and that the majority of Americans would not be willing to emerge from the familiar luxury of their automobiles, even briefly, to try the little-known and problematic advantages of the bicycle, the saddle horse, and the footpath. This might be so, but how can we be sure unless we dare the experiment? I, for one, suspect that millions of our citizens, especially the young, are yearning for adventure, difficulty, challenge. They will respond with enthusiasm. What we must do, prodding the Park Service into the forefront of the demonstration, is provide these young people with the opportunity, the assistance, and the necessary encouragement. How could this most easily be done? By following the steps I have proposed, plus reducing the expenses of wilderness recreation to the minimal level. Guide service by rangers should, of course, be free to the public. Money saved by not constructing more paved highways into the parks should be sufficient to finance the cost of bicycles and horses for the entire park system. Elimination of automobile traffic would allow the Park Service to save more millions now spent on road maintenance, police work, and paperwork. Whatever the cost, however financed, the benefits for park visitors in health and happiness, virtues unknown to the statisticians, would be immeasurable. Excluding the automobile from the heart of the great cities has been seriously advocated by thoughtful observers of our urban problems. It seems to me an equally proper solution to the problems besetting our national parks. Of course, it would be a serious blow to industrial tourism and would be bitterly resisted by those who profit from that industry. Exclusion of automobiles would also require a revolution in the thinking of Park Service officialdom and in the assumptions of most American tourists. But such a revolution, like it or not, is precisely what is needed. The only foreseeable alternative, given the current trends of things, is the gradual destruction of our natural park system. Dude, Monopoly money, actually? Actually? You serious? Are you serious? In the Monopoly money thing? Oh my god. We have 2 pages left. Holy crapola. We're almost there, everybody. It's a big passage, huh? Hopefully you've enjoyed it. Oh yeah, I forgot Ganja. Are you skiing in Oregon? Oh, you live in North Carolina? Oh my god, you're East Coast. You know we're enemies at heart? Do you know that? A goose? You probably get a baby goose pretty easily. You just have to fight off the mom and dad as they try to pick out your eyeballs. And we have a Patreon. We have a Patreon if anyone wants to support. Anyone lurking or those in the forefront. You can join for free and see occasional posts or support with as little as $3, as we're not monetized on YouTube yet. Thank you so much. On to the next pages. Let us therefore steal a slogan from the development fever faction in the Park Service. The parks they say are for people. Very well. At the main entrance to each national park and national monument, we shall erect a billboard 100 feet high, 200 feet wide, gorgeously filigreed in brilliant neon and outlined with blinker lights, exploding stars, flashing prayer wheels, and great Byzantine phallic symbols that gush like geysers every 30 seconds. You could set your watch by them. Behind the fireworks will loom the figure of Smokey the Bear, taller than a pine tree, with eyes in his head that swivel back and forth watching you, and ears that actually twitch. Push a button and Smokey will recite, for the benefit of children and government officials who might otherwise have trouble with some of the big words, in a voice your sign, loud and clear, the message spilled out on the face of the billboard. To it. Howdy, folks. Welcome. This is your national park established for the pleasure of you and all people everywhere. Park your car, Jeep, truck, tank, motorbike, motorboat, jet boat, airboat, submarine, airplane, jet plane, helicopter, hovercraft, winged motorcycle, snowmobile, rocket ship, or any other conceivable type of motorized vehicle in the world's biggest parking lot behind the comfort station immediately to your rear. Get out of your motorized vehicle, get on your horse, mule, bicycle, or feet, and come on in. Enjoy yourselves. This here park is for people. The survey chief and his 2 assistants did not stay long in my house. Letting them go in peace, without debate, I fixed myself another drink, returned to the table in the backyard, and sat down to await the rising of the moon. My thoughts were on the road and the crowds that would pour upon it as inevitably as water under pressure flows every channel which is open to it. Man is a gregarious creature, we are told, a social being. Does that mean he is also a herd animal? I don't believe it, despite the character of modern life. The herd is for ungulates, not for men and women and their children. Are men no better than sheep or cattle, that they must live always in view of one another in order to feel a sense of safety? I can't believe it. We are preoccupied with time. If we could learn to love space as deeply as we are now obsessed with time, we might discover a new meaning in the phrase, to live like men. At what distance should good neighbors build their houses? Let it be determined by the community's mode of travel. If by foot, 4 miles. If by horseback, 8 miles. If by motorboat, 24 miles. If by airplane, 96 miles. Recall the proverb, set not thy foot too often in thy neighbor's house, lest he grow weary of thee and hate thee. The sun went down, and the light mellowed over the sand and distance and hoodoo rocks, pinnacled dim in the intense inane. A few stars appeared, scattered liberally through space. The solitary owl called. Finally, the moon came up, a golden globe behind the rocky fretwork of the horizon, a full and delicate moon that floated lightly as a leaf upon the dark, slow current of the night. A face that watched me from the other side. The air grew cold. I put on boots and shirt, stuffed some cheese and raisins in my pocket, and went for a walk. The moon was high enough to cast a good light when I reached the place where the gray Jeep had first come into view. I could see the tracks of its wheels quite plainly in the sand, and the route was well marked, not only by the tracks but by the survey stakes planted in the ground at regular 50-foot intervals and by streamers of plastic ribbon tied to the brush and trees. Teamwork. That's what made America what it is today. Teamwork and initiative. The survey crew had done their job. I would do mine. For about 5 miles, I walked the course of their survey back towards headquarters, and as I went, I pulled up each little wooden stake and threw it away, and cut all the bright ribbons from the bushes and hid them under a rock. A futile effort in the long run, but it made me feel good. Then I went home to the trailer, taking a shortcut over the bluffs. that was our reading stream for today. What'd you think? Damn, 2 hours on the dot. That's crazy. Wow, that's wild. What are the odds on that? I mean, we're at 1 hour and 59 minutes, but that is pretty crazy. That was pretty crazy. Yeah, my ass was gushing like a geyser every 30 seconds. Oh my God. You know, the first and probably Patreon I've joined? What? Probably only? Have you, you've subscribed to Patreon before? Sweet of you. No, he was not holding my hand. Yeah, it's a really interesting like approach to the solution of national parks. I often like accidentally called it natural parks. So that book, Desert Solitaire, and those pages that I read were the initial fire and fuel for the Green Radical movement. So that you just subbed to it? Oh, did you get the free one? Or maybe I didn't see the noti. I was reading too intently, I'm assuming. Oh, cool. Well, thanks for hopping on. That's very sweet of you. There might be a few free items on there, but I do want to utilize it more. Hell yeah. Thank you so much, Allison. Did you just make a new account? That's very sweet of you. Very, 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 very sweet of you. Hell yeah. Hell yeah. Yeah, dude. I really, really like that. That's awesome. Thank you so much. You can get the app on your phone too. I don't know if you're on your phone or on your computer, but I use the one on my phone. But for like the creator side, I use my computer. Yeah. So what he talked about was that was what inspired the radical green movement, where he was going and like pulling up all the stakes out of the ground that the road contractors had put in. Like that action was what inspired. Like people were like, okay, you know what? I think I have to take something into my own hands. I think, you know, it's things are going to get so drastic. It's hard not to feel like that's the solution. Because the government isn't listening and it's impossible to get everyone. It's hard. It's really hard. I'm not encouraging vandalism. I'm not encouraging going against your government and doing illegal things. But at times it's like, how else is there going to be the impact that we need? But perhaps it just takes time. Social media is just the downfall of like the world, because social media platforms will feed you content it thinks that you want to see, and like disinformation is really, really, really big on the environmental front. Either people stretching the truth and like over exaggerating the severity of certain things, which then discredits other things that are said. Or it's the other side where the people are just like, climate change isn't real, global warming isn't real. And then those posts are just promoted more to those people because the social media platforms know that people want to see that. And then since the social media platforms push those posts, the climate change is false posts to so many people, then it'll start pushing it to other people as well. And then people that didn't believe in that, or that were in the middle ground, that then see those posts that say climate change is not real, that has, you know, 1 million likes. You know, you can't tell that those 1 million likes were from 1 million people that just didn't think it was real, not because there's any proof to it, just because it was put to someone that the platform knows has that belief. So it's just a lot. It's like this self-feeding, self-growing demonic machine, and it's bad and it's scary. It's very spooky. But I see that we've got 3-4 viewers, and I want to say thank you for being here. I guess at one point we had 6. There's also a 9 in the morning, 10 in the morning stream. We usually stream at 6, so I can see it catching people off guard. And I've had a lot of fun today, though. I've really enjoyed that. I'll turn it into a VOD. So I'll trim out the beginning portion of the VOD. So if you wanted to catch the beginning, or if you missed any parts, I'll do that. It's 12 now. We started stream at 10. Sorry. My lord. But Allison says, yeah, pretty interesting. I'm so ready for all the political ads to get off YouTube. That'd be so funny if all of our ads just get hardwired for this now. Yeah, we have a very big time difference. A 4-hour time difference is actually pretty insane. That's very intense. That's that coastal war. It'll put you down. Allison says, my science teacher last year told our whole class climate change wasn't real. That sucks. That sucks. Yeah, it's literally political, and in the book it touched on it too. It's literally political because of like the industrial tourism part to it. You know, there's so much money in gas, there's so much money in these things that are bad for the environment, that they're going to run disinformation ads on it. They're going to run disinformation stuff, and it's just how the cookie crumbles. It sucks, but it's the truth. So yeah, you can get very pessimistic on the whole topic very fast, and it's hard not to. But I am going to wrap up stream. 2 hours and 7 minutes in. Thank you so much for everybody being here and tuning along and hanging out with me. Our next stream is, I'm not sure. I'll probably take a break tomorrow. We'll stream Monday. I'll see how many days I want to stream next week. We'll see. But I'll see everyone in the Discord. And Allison, so good to see you again. Thanks for hanging out with us. You know where we are now. Whoa. Hope you have a great weekend, and I'll see you all Monday. Bye. See ya.